Good morning or good noon to you, depending on your time zone. I'd like to welcome you to the Attribution in Action webinar brought to you by S Media. My name is Terry Bell. I'm the marketing manager here at S Media. This is part one in our Attribution in Action webinar series, and we're going to cover data management, data relevancy, attribution basics, and the business impacts of attribution. Now, our goal is to provide an introductory overview. So if you have any questions or would like to dig deeper in a topic, please submit a question and we'll address it at the end of the presentation in a Q&A session. Also have a quick poll that we'll do at one point as well. So this session, as I mentioned, is recorded. A link will be provided to you, and you also receive an invite to part two of this series. Our panelist today is Jared Emsley. He's our Chief Technology Officer here at S Media. Jared's education and passion is in business information systems, so we couldn't ask for a better guide on attribution. Jared, why don't you take us in?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry. Really excited. This is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. So really excited to jump in, and hopefully everyone can leave with some tidbits of how attribution can help you improve your business and get a better understanding of the topic of attribution as a whole. So the simple expectation is data can answer all your questions, but it's rarely that simple. So the goal of this is hopefully attribution can help you fill that gap. So as this kind of comic shows us, a lot of us have been in this situation before where potentially a stakeholder, an owner, a general manager asks the tough questions. The simple question is our marketing campaign profitable or not? A lot of us are left like the gentleman in this comic where we're sitting there with the speech bubble with not having the answers because we don't have that data ready for it. You can improve what you don't measure, and we get data from a lot of different sources. It can be a struggle to look at all that different data and make sense of it, especially when the data is coming from all these different sources. They're telling all these different stories. So it's really about how do we consolidate that data and tell a unified story. So in the world of data, we tend to deal with three different type of time frames when we discuss data: what we've seen, what we're seeing, and what we expect to see. In order to make better decisions, you need to be able to start to connect the data points from what we're seeing now to real world results. And really, the better we are able to prove out these connections, and the better we get at this, the better you'll be able to accurately predict kind of future results based on your current data. So really, when we look at data, just try to always remember the three different time periods. Obviously, historical, the data now, and what we're expecting. As for essentials, there's three essentials to effective data. So the three kind of areas that we wanted to highlight today are going to be around quality, continuity, and relevance. We're going to, for today's purposes, we're going to focus on relevance. In part two of our webinar series, we're hoping to jump into quality and continuity. So when we talk about quality, obviously the data that we have coming in needs to be relevant, clean, and have a source of truth. When we talk about continuity, this is a really important piece right now with the transition to Google Analytics 4. We want to make sure that we set up our data systems in a manner that we're able to tell a continuous story from our universal analytics data into the new realm of Google Analytics 4. But for today's purposes, like I mentioned before, we're going to focus on relevance. So what is your plan? If you're going to collect, evaluate, and leverage data, you need a plan. And that's where relevance really comes in. Because as we all know, data doesn't have any intrinsic value on its own. It's only useful when you use it to make positive changes and influence the decisions of your business. As dealers, we should define what our measurement strategy is and develop a plan on how we can leverage this type of information. So what is a measurement strategy? Some things to think about are, where are the blind spots in our shopping journey? What are the pieces on our website that we're not able to effectively track? So just some things to start thinking about when we're trying to develop those measurement strategies and a data plan. Really, it all starts with a beautiful question. What do you want to know about your business? Also, kind of what do we want to measure? So what do some of these questions look like? What path did shoppers take to get to your lead form? Where are we losing shoppers? How much are we spending on specific units? Really, we just need to focus on whatever revs up your business engine and really dig into those results. So what we've done is we've tried to kind of give you a baseline of 5 simple rules to follow when you're starting to think about your measurement strategy. So rule number 1, and the way we want people to start thinking, is try to understand all of your strategic company goals. What are those things that are stuck on your whiteboard? Where are the thorns on your side? Where are all the stakeholders really trying to align and build the goals for the company? From there, once we get an understanding of our goals, we need to shift to our second rule, which is the ability to ask open-ended questions. So when I say ask open-ended questions, what questions do we want to find the answer to with data? So in any goal setting scenario, we want to be able to, build ourselves questions in order to answer that with data. Going to rule number 3 is the goal, are we focusing on the now, or is it a future focused goal? So really trying to align, is this something we want to action now, or are we setting up our results for the future? Rule number 4, this is probably one of the most important. As marketeers, we tend to get a little bit narrow focused on, jumping into the ad platforms, seeing what our results are. But something to keep in mind is we really need to think outside of the data sets. So, what are the external factors that are happening in the market? So some examples of this would be, currency fluctuation, interest rate spikes, weather. We need to think outside the data set when we are building these goals and trying to build our measurement strategy. And from here, the last rule that we'll go through is going to be around your underlying KPIs. So for anyone who's not familiar with the term KPI, that's a key performance indicator. So really what we need to do is, when we're building these plans, we need to understand where we're trying to shoot towards. So this is putting the targets into place. What is attribution, you might ask? It is the act of attributing something, or put it simple, it's to explain something by indicating the cause. So as you can see in this cartoon, the customer's journey, the shopper goes through a variety of different touch points. Most businesses market their products in multiple different ways, whether that's TV, radio, digital, traditional mediums. And often we get narrow-minded and focus, and the credit goes to the last touch point or the last converting factor. And really where that can lead us astray is we are ignoring all the assists that are keeping customers engaged during the whole overall journey. So it's really, when you look at this example, customer served, a direct mailer, they're seeing stuff online. But in this scenario, the boardroom, they're saying, obviously we should move 100% of our spend to the mobile application, when that's not always the case. We need to look at the full customer picture. So dealers, levers without multi-touch attribution. So if you aren't measuring the whole journey, it is really easy to fall into the 2-level trap of marketing. Pull the lever to utilize marketing, push the lever forward to cut marketing. A lot of us have been in those scenarios. When things get tight, marketing is typically the first budget to go. So what we can do and suggest is the goal of a data strategy is to use multi-touch attribution to provide a lot more levers to help you achieve your goals and objectives. So what some of those levers look like are, adjusting your call to actions and your measurement strategy. So on your website, what are the different call to actions that we're looking to measure that we can evaluate the success of our marketing channels? Where do we move budgets around? If things aren't working, we need to move and double down on the channels that are being effective. And really, overall, we need to try to understand and improve the overall customer experience. So in the last slide, we talked about multi-touch attribution. This slide is basically, we're going to try to focus on understanding the attribution models. So from a high-level overview, most of us are probably familiar with a single touch point model, or first or a last click attribution model. Really, at the end of the day, there's 2 different types of models. There's going to be single touch point models, and there's going to be multi-touch point models. So single touch point models are looking for individual pieces of the customer journey. So as you can see in the example, First click is going to focus on that first starting point of that journey. Last click, focusing on the last. A last click non-direct is focusing on the last, but stripping off the direct source of traffic. So a scenario where a last click non-direct would be utilized, say a customer served an ad, they bookmark the specific URL or VDP of their interest. So basically, by eliminating that direct source, it just gives us a unskewed view. Where the multi-touch models are going to be more focused on a segment of the customer journey. So looking at more than one touch point. So time decay is where we focus on the latter half of the journey. Linear models are going to focus on giving equal credit to the whole journey. And position-based models are going to focus on the starting and the finishing of that customer journey. So multi-touch models essentially help us assign credit where credit is due. So a little bit more of a fun example here, just to kind of give everyone, a little bit more of a light example. So attribution is totally based on context. So who gets the credit? Well, it depends on who you ask. So if we apply this to the automotive world, it's possible you've had multiple vendors taking credit for the same sale. They might all deserve credit, and it's also possible none of them were involved. So depending and discovering the truth depends on what goals you're tracking and if you can connect the data to your sales data. So we'll use this example on the screen right now. So this example is basically, where does the credit go for marriage? So we've got three different scenarios or personas here. So we basically, if you were to ask Tinder in a situation where, what led to marriage, Tinder's going to say that swipe right is what got you to becoming married. If you're going to ask the gentleman or the guy in the situation, they're typically going to say it's the ring or the big fancy proposal. But in this scenario, it's really important to think like a data scientist and align with attribution, where we give equal credit to the parties. So as you can see on the bottom scenario there, we're giving 0.3 credit to the swipe right. We're giving 0.2 credit to that dinner date. 0.2 credit to that first trip together as a couple, and then 0.3 to the proposal. So as we mentioned, it's all about giving credit where credit is due. Why might you seek an attribution tool? So a lot of the common answers you'll see on the left. So you're skeptical of potential vendor reports. You want to cut expenditures. Marketing is definitely always the easy target. One of the analogies we always like to use is, as marketing managers or individuals in marketing, we tend to be the kid at the beach who builds this big elaborate sandcastle. And when the business is tough, typically owners, GMs come in and kick the sandcastle over. So what we're hoping to do when you build those attribution tools is allow you to have the data to stand behind your decisions. When we go to more of an evolved data strategy and improving that, really some of the things that we're looking at are trying to increase the robustness of our measurement systems. We need the ability to master measurement to outperform our competitors. And basically another kind of angle at it as well is it allows you to plan continuously and how we improve the website experience. So our websites in today's day and age are extensions of our showroom. So by improving the experience online, we will also improve our brand as a whole. How does attribution work? So typically there's three verticals within attribution. There's tracking, there's analytics, and there's sales and marketing data. So what does tracking do? Tracking is where you typically utilize tools like Google Tag Manager, and a lot of different JavaScript applications, which allow us to look for the behaviors that we're looking to track on the website. With analytics is where we take those behaviors and channel them into a reporting platform to view that data. Sales and marketing data is where we take the offline data and tie that to your online data and bring that full circle. So that's where an attribution suite brings in all three verticals. And at the end, we'll give you that actionable data story that we're looking for. So how can attribution impact my business? So some of the outcomes that you'll see here is, identifying how much it costs to sell specific units. track customer experience designed around, is it a hard lead or is it a soft lead? Determine, which sources were the starting factors of a customer journey, which one's assisted and which one's closed. When you build these effective strategies, some of your future outcomes allow you to modify your call to actions and track results based on specific goals. And those goals should come from the dealership in what are we trying to do as a brand and as a dealer, and how do we want to track that? And this can also help you identify issues that much quicker. So understanding, where potential spend is being misused, and really take action in more of a timely manner. So now what? We figured it'd be a good exercise to do a little bit of a self-evaluation. So if you're thinking about jumping on the journey of going towards attribution, some of the things that we would recommend: determine, your top 10 goals that you'd like to track. So when you think about your goals, typically think, what are the things that we would like visibility on our website to track effectiveness? And how do these align with what you're trying to accomplish? Look at your data management strategy. Do we have all the data to make the right decisions and answer the questions we're trying to solve? Identify the areas of improvement or potential areas of scrutiny within your business. We highly recommend considering conducting a tag audit. So understanding how your tag structures and strategy work on your website. So there will be a link provided where you're able to go through that audit and we will be provided some results. And then the last piece would be registering for part 2 of our Attribution in Action webinar. So part 2, and what we're hoping to cover on the second piece of our series, will be on the topics of data quality and continuity. We're going to explain how tagging structure and the analytics and web setups can result in flawed data, even if you have a great attribution suite. And we'll try to do a brief run through of what attribution in action looks like with our attribution suite, DataSherpa. So I'm going to open it up for some questions here.
Thanks for that, Jarrett. So we do have some mail-in questions that we're going to address. There is a Q&A button down at the bottom there. You can put any questions in there. I'm also going to launch a poll right now while we're waiting to see if any of those questions come in. We'll just give it a few seconds there. So there is a part 2, as Jarrett mentioned, to this webinar. We're going to go a little more depth into the cleanliness of data. One of those earlier 3 essentials that were discussed in the webinar, and also continuity of data, which is a concern for a lot of people right now because of the transition over to GA4. And we're going to give a brief tour of our attribution solution, DataSherpa. It won't be a full product demo. It's just going to be a number of highlights. Full product demos are available to anyone who would like one. Feel free to email sales@smedia.ca or reply at webinar@smedia.ca, and we'll certainly get someone in touch with you to have a look. So we have a question here. How should a dealer get started with a measurement strategy?
That is a great question. So when we're thinking about a measurement strategy, typically we like to recommend 5 different event categories. So when we talk about an event, those are going to be call to actions, different ways that we try to understand where do we want visibility on the website. So what those event categories typically look like are going to be click events. So where are areas that you want to understand where users are interacting with? Form submissions. So form submissions, how are we capturing that first party data from the customer? Do we understand how customers are getting to that point, and do they have any friction in between there? The next piece would be views. So do we have specific pages that we're trying to draw attention to that we want visibility on with views? That can be also offers. So to kind of roll back there, clicks, try to understand what visibility do we want around clicks? What visibility do we want around form submissions? Views, site searching. So if we've got site searchability, it's really important that we build a strategy around your site search as well. The site search components are really great for understanding, what are customers having issues finding on the website. Typically, if a user can't find something, they're going to use the search function. Also, it's really great for understanding, which vehicles of interest are consumers looking for on our website. So site search, and then the last component would be e-commerce or tools. So when we talk about e-commerce, do we have a sign-on feature where users can sign in that we can put measurement around? Yeah, try to follow those 5 different event categories. So thinking about, how the different engagements on our website would align with those 5 different categories.
Another question here, Jarrett. Can't my vendors measure this stuff for me?
Yes, typically what happens with vendors is they're going to have, what their measurement strategy aligns with, and that doesn't typically always align with our own businesses. So typically when we build a measurement strategy, we flip over the equation and say, as a dealer, where do we need visibility? Every dealership website is going to be totally different from each other, whether it's the technical stack or the tools we're utilizing. So it's really just building a strategy that's unique, that answers the questions for all the different stakeholders within the business.
Okay, if you advance, there's a couple of questions that came in there as well, Jarrett.
Sure.
Webinar will be wrapping up in a few minutes, so if you have any other questions, feel free to continue to ask.
Sure. So I see a question here. What should I do? What should I be measuring if I decide to take the leap and use attribution? So that can kind of piggyback on the answer from before. So think about, which click events would I like to be tracking? Which forms are important to me on my website? Where do I need view looks, site search, and different e-commerce features? This is just really important to understand, the landscape of your website is, where do we feel we don't have visibility? We can use a variety of different tools. There's heat mapping tools, but this is really the beauty of when you set up effective measurement strategies, you can actually use them to optimize your digital strategies. So a lot of the new advertising platforms use conversion goals to optimize your strategy. So if you're running a service campaign, it's really important to build measurement goals around, say a service schedule or your service click to call, and you can optimize based on those specific components. So it's really just aligning, where are we trying to deploy our ad dollars and how are we going to help validate that and optimize our campaigns?
How will GA4 affect my current data?
Sure. So the actual data system behind Google Analytics 4 is quite different. The big transition from Universal Analytics to GA4, Universal Analytics, we're used to a variety of different template reports. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with, the left-hand bar on Universal Analytics, where we've got just a library of different resources. The biggest component of GA4 is they're giving you the ability to grab all that data. It's just now they're relying and saying, hey, you need some sort of data pipeline, and Google has their own called BigQuery, where you can pull data out of there. And now they're saying, if you want custom reports, we've got our software in Google Data Studio that you can leverage. So really, it's all about trying to understand. I think the biggest component of how GA4 will affect your data is if we don't start tracking, we're going to have blind spots. The way event tracking works is we cannot go back on our data. So it is from the day we start tracking that we can effectively capture data. So my biggest recommendation is to get ahead of the GA4 curve, start tracking data. There will be more to come. I know with a lot of our advertising clients, it's an initiative that we are taking on. S Media is very proud to be sitting on the Automotive Standards Council for GA4 to set what a standardized kind of a measurement strategy and overall standard looks like. So.
Yeah, another thing to keep in mind is that GA4, when you make that transition, your historical data isn't going to port over with that. So dealers need to be mindful of finding a way to maintain their existing data when it comes to universal analytics.
Yeah, no, that's a great point there, Terry. So just making sure when we talk about data management, Google Analytics is not a data management platform. It is a visualization tool or a reporting tool. So if we haven't backed up your data from Universal Analytics, I highly recommend finding some sort of data management platform to do so, because come June 2023, all that time series data and that important data that you've been collecting will not be backed up by Google. They will be wiping the slate clean.
So one thing I really love about a good attribution platform is the fact that you get all your reporting in one place. And one of the challenges I know, having spoken to a lot of dealerships and over the years, is so many different vendor reports, and they don't always agree with each other, and you have to go to a lot of different sources, and be able to get all that in one place is really nice. How many attribution tools are there out there for customers in the automotive industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a couple bigger players in the industry. There's Clairvoy, who focus on their niche is specific to attribution. There's Orbeez in the market. There's the Vista Dashes. Really, it's finding a attribution tool that works with your business and aligns with the measurement strategy that we're looking to deploy. I think the biggest thing to look at is how do we tailor your measurement strategy and your attribution tool that answers the questions that your dealership wants to know, not based on the vendor's recommendations. It's what questions do you want to answer and how do we build a measurement strategy around that? So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jarrett. I don't have any other questions lined up here. I want to keep it nice and tight. We'll wrap this webinar up. I want to thank everyone for attending. You will receive a recording as well as an invite to the next attribution webinar. And if you're interested in getting a tour of DataSherpa, a personal demo, that's certainly something we can arrange, and I'll give you some information in the follow-up email on that as well. Thank you, Jarrett.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to all of you, and have yourself a wonderful day.